Very good evening, friends. Meeting again in the session of H.A.Robert's philosophy. And we have finished the first two chapters from H.A.Robert's philosophy from the syllabus of fourth year. Now we're going to turn toward the chapter number 22, and chap- chapter number 22 onwards is related with the disease classification and chronic miasms. And all those chapters are very, very useful from exam point of view as well as from practice point of view. If one has to understand the depth of the miasms, this Robert's understanding about the miasm is very much necessary to understand. You can get many things in H.A. Robert's thoughts. Robert was an intelligent fellow, and he has explained his own hypotheses which are related with the miasms. And those are very much necessary to understand. He tried to explain, he has correlated the miasm and its relationship with the sora, psychosis, and syphilis, how atomic weights of the elements of the periodic table, how they belongs to sora, how they belongs to psychosis, who they belongs to the syphilis, everything he has tried his level best to explain it in detail. And that's why today onwards, what we're going to learn is very, very important, where we're going to learn many things about the miasms. So let us open the chapter 22, that is the disease classification from H.A.Robert. All scientific advancement shows the epochs of great progress. In the early 17th century, the Swedish student Linnaeus means is Carl Linnaeus, studied the flora of the world, which has then largely unclassified, and through his prodigious endeavors, he classified the vegetable kingdom as far as then known and laid down the system of classification which would be applicable to further discovery. This placed the study of botany on a scientific basis. So, botanical classification, the Carl Linnaeus was the first person who has classified the botanical classification, and he has because of which it was very easy to understand the different species of the plants, which was not possible because there are a number of species. How one can go ahead? And he was the first person who has classified the plant kingdom. In the similar manner, in the similar era, the animal classification was done by Cuvier. Both of them were just prior to the Hahnemannian time or during Hahnemannian time. So what he says in 1817 and 1818, Cuvier studied the animal kingdom and the knowledge of that kingdom being at that time disjointed and unclassified. Through his stupendous labors, he classified all animal life into four great kingdoms: the vertebrates, the mollusks, the articulates, and radiates. So he was the first person who has classified the animal kingdom into four groups. Vertebrates, those who are having vertebra are vertebrates. Prushtavanshya prani, that is what is called as. Mollusk means those who don't have a vertebral body. Mollusk. Third one, articulates, where the joints are united together are articulates. And radiates means they are the animals which used to have their body center to periphery. So radiates, it's like radius. Into these four great families, all animal life can be classified. Contemporary means Samakalin. A contemporary of Cuvier was Samuel Hahnemann. At that period, disease was known only by few named diseases with no relationship or method of classification. Medical practice was in extremely chaotic condition and was not yet free from appellations of many years of superstition. So medical practice was not logical, it was illogical. Anyone used to say anything and someone used to follow, that type of practice was there. And that's why it was just based upon many superstitious concepts. It was still thought that diseases were the work of evil one, and no comprehensive study of disease condition has been made. In order to establish logical basis for the recognition of disease conditions and their origin, and relationship, it was necessary to make many close observations of then known diseases and then proceed to deductions and proper classification. So that was the era where there was no classification of diseases, only names of the diseases were there and ample names were given, but there was no treatment provided. It was not dependent upon what type of disease. It was not at all logical. So it was a completely chaos. So that was the time when it was needed. Hahnemann set himself to this task, bringing his logical, scientific mind to bear on situation, and he made the first classification of diseases that had ever been attempted. So he was called to be a father of classification of diseases because he was the first one who has started this stupendous work, and he has classified diseases into the 4 different types. So this happened because already Carl Linnaeus have done the botanical classification, the Cuvier have done the animal classification, and Hahnemann was the intelligent person who used to have a botanical knowledge, who used to have animal knowledge, and because of which it was possible for him to think about diseases in the similar manner, and he has started doing the work. It is significant that in this endeavor, he recognized the presence of bacteria and attributed to these animal forms too minute for the eye to see many forms of epidemic and acute illnesses. And this deduction he announced in 1818, more than 60 years before Koch isolated the tubercle bacilli. See, this is a very important thing. Hahnemann was so intelligent that with the study of his epidemic knowledge and with the study of all those diseases, he came to the conclusion in 1818 that these are the diseases, epidemic diseases, these are caused because of some creatures which are invisible to naked eye, but they get transmitted from one person to another person. And he labeled to them by the name of acute miasms. He said in 73 aphorism, he has classified the acute diseases into 4 types: the individual, sporadic, epidemic, and endemic. And he explained over there the epidemic and endemic are caused because of the such a thing. They are caused because of acute miasms. He was not having microscope, he was not having anything, but still with his intelligent study and logical mind, he came or arrived at the same thought, which was later in 1882, Robert Koch isolated cholera bacillus and labeled it as a coma bacillus or a cholera bacillus vibrio cholerae. It was explained by Hahnemann in 1818, and he has explained how to prevent cholera, and the mortality rate was negligible when Hahnemann treated them with homeopathy and with preventive measures, as compared to 40% mortality was there with allopathic treatment. So that was an era when Hahnemann was way ahead, 60 years, 50 years way ahead than the contemporary peoples who were working with the working with the old school. As Cuvier classified zoology into the 4 great kingdoms, so Hahnemann classified diseases into 4 great divisions. Since the principles of classification would fail unless these classifications were all embrace all embracive, it was the work of several years to trace the course of each disease to its origin and place it into its proper place, proper classification with due regard to its source and development. The first of these classification was simple, in that it embraces all diseases that might spring from mechanical and external sources. This included fractures, strains, indiscretions of the diet, external poisons such as fumes and noxious plants, extremes of thermic conditions such as frostbite or sunstroke, and all trade diseases. This class embraced conditions which are largely self-curative in that they may be rectified by the regulating environment and habits. So Hahnemann started first classifying diseases, and he has separated first variety of diseases where cause is external, to which he labeled by the name of aerodynamic. They are either because of some mechanical cause, they are either because of some poisoning, they are either because of some causa occasionalis. The cause is external, and or they might be some indispositions also because of mm, difference in diet or some fault in diet or regimen. So this is first type of diseases which Hahnemann separated, that they are not actually diseases, but they are mimicking the diseases. So this was simple. First thing, to remove the things which are not purely dynamical disease. And once you remove them, what remains to be treated, that you have to classify. While these conditions may be self-curative, if the conditions are regulated, medicine may assist and hasten the recovery. Any of the conditions in this classification may be more or less mixed with more deep-seated conditions from another and deeper origin, and this may so complicate the matter that medicine will be required to alleviate the resultant distress. So those generally called to be an indispositions or called to be because of some exciting cause, you remove the cause and disease will be cured. Very occasionally, if it is of a severe character, needs the medicines, otherwise they never need the medicine. If you keep them themselves, they used to get cured. Unless you drug them with allopathy, they cannot get complicated. Repeated claims have been made that the followers of Hahnemann treat diseases by the symptoms only, applying remedies according to the symptomatology and paying attention only to the symptomatic applicability of the remedy. But it cannot be emphasized too strongly that Hahnemann made one classification of disease conditions that were dependent entirely on external causes, such as mechanical conditions. It was Hahnemann's teaching that the removal of the cause was the first step in the proper method of cure. This may occasion at times surgical procedure, rectification of diet, the removal of irritating substances, change of environment, anything and everything that may place the patient in the best possible relation for the complete cure, which will take place of itself when the cause is removed. So Hahnemann's thought was very clear. If such types of diseases are there, which are because of such external causes or some exciting causes, simple thing is logical, remove the cause. If patient is coughing because of continuous smoking, it is your duty to tell the patient first stop the smoking, then cough will automatically stop. If it persists, patient will require the medicine even after the removal of the cause. But if you just remove the smoking, you just ask the patient to stop the smoking, and patient stopped the smoking, then automatically cough vanished. So such things are necessary to tell the patient. And this Hahnemann was very intelligent, that he said that every time you never require a medicine. What patient requires medicine is after removal of causa occasionalis or exciting causes. If it persists, then definitely patient will require the medicine. Hahnemann taught by the precept and the example of value of thinking through to the beginning, the first cause of the disease condition and treating them accordingly. So he said that it is necessary to first understand the disease process right from the beginning, how the disease has developed, what may be the exciting factor, what may be the causa occasionalis, or is there any maintaining cause. Everything you have to take into consideration. If you find it out that if there is any causa occasionalis or if there is any exciting cause, it is your duty to remove them first. That is first variety of diseases to be treated and to be covered with the help of just changing in the diet, changing the regular mode of living. If it is altered, all those things are necessary, which brings the patient again into the state of health. In his observation of cases and in further study of progress of disease condition under the homeopathic method of treatment, Hahnemann was specially struck with the course of non-venereal diseases. Hahnemann found himself treating seemingly acute conditions with apparent success, but to his surprise, these cases would return with recurrence of symptoms at intervals. Sometimes these symptoms were very similar to those that had before, and while at other times there would be an aggravation of the previous conditions or other variations. Considerable study of these cases convinced Hahnemann that there was some underlying condition which was the mainspring of these recurrent manifestations, and which was causing more or less gradually the retrograde condition, although the acute manifestations were apparently met and conquered by the homeopathic remedy. It occurred to him that he was treating in these acute conditions only a part of real disease. Otherwise, the disease would have come completely and permanently cured by administration of the simillimum. So he is explaining over there that Hahnemann was treating those acute diseases with acute remedies, and he was very much happy with those. But there were many patients who used to suffer from long-standing diseases and they never used to get cured with the help of those homeopathic remedies. Patient feels better for time being, but never getting cured. So thought was there in Hahnemann's mind what to do, because the patients were, the trouble was consistently there. Feeling better for time being, recurrence is there, again he was treating with some remedy, again the patient was feeling better, but there was recurrence. And that was the thought in his mind, what is the reason behind those? It was specifically related with the history of venereal diseases in the past. That was the only thing which he was knowing. So he studied those cases again and again where the failure was there, and he was studying those cases with 5 points in mind called as theory of chronic diseases. I think we have discussed about the theory of chronic diseases in earlier lectures also. There are 5 points with which Hahnemann looked towards the these uh, chronic diseases, that why these are not getting settled, and there are 5 thoughts which aroused in Hahnemann's mind. The first point was that the nature's law of cure might not be a law of universal application. That was first thought. And he studied those cases again and again, found that this law is universally applicable. Then second thought with which Hahnemann looked towards it was that the number of remedies which Hahnemann have proved might be less in number, because of which he was not able to find the exact simillimum, and because of which he was not getting the result. That was another second thought was there. But he studied those cases again and he found that whatever remedy which he has applied was correct. Third thought was that the mode of case taking might be faulty. That was again looking inside, that my mode of case taking might be faulty, because of which I'm not getting the results. Again, he has studied those cases, again found the same thing, that it was correct. The fourth thought which was developed in his mind, that mode of application of medicine to the patients might be faulty, because of which he was not getting the result. That was another thought. Again, he restudied all those cases. And last point which he thought was there might be any obstacle in the process of recovery, because of which those cases were not getting cured. So these are 5 thoughts with which Hahnemann looked towards them, found it out cause, and going through those cases again and again, because of which it was possible to look towards one thing. He got one common theme in them. There was a history of suppressed syphilis, either in the past or family history. And that because of which new diseases arose, where he got one common theme, and that was the first miasm which he found it out was the venereal miasm, that is syphility. So see, this was very important how he arrived at this disease classification. If these exacerbated symptoms were but fragment of disease, then there must be a much deeper primitive force underlying these sporadic manifestations, which could be judged only by force and frequency of reappearance. It became Hahnemann's study to take into consideration these deeper conditions from which sprang the acute diseases. As a part of prescription necessary to cure, it was his aim to find a remedy which would meet the acute condition and presumably hidden condition at the same time. In order to undertake this stupendous task, it was necessary to study a vast number of cases and to consider and develop number of remedies to meet his requirements, and find a remedy which was to cure both the acute symptoms and underlying chronic sicknesses, to conquer the hidden primitive malady. So Hahnemann started studying diseases in this manner, and he got that there must be some underlying cause, underlying disease, because of which these diseases are not getting cured. These are not of acute origin. There must be something deeper, And what is that deeper? That he classified and understood, and then he started thinking about remedies which has the capacity to reach to that deeper level. So Naxumika, Ipecac, Aconite, Belladonna, these are not remedies which reach to that deeper plane. These are remedies of acute miasm. These are remedies which act superficial. And where the disease is chronic, because of chronic miasms, it was impossible to cure with those remedies. And he was in search of such remedies to conquer the primary malady in the form of some chronic miasm. This involved two two lines of investigation, one in natural chronic disease conditions and one in artificially produced disease conditions, which should be similar in symptomatology and the depth of action to the natural disease. In his study, he separated all disease conditions into 4 grade groups before mentioned. The mechanical conditions were easily detected and classified, and to the 3 remaining groups, Hahnemann gave the term miasms. So he was arriving towards the miasm after removing one forms of diseases which has external cause, which doesn't have any relation directly with the chronic disease, which are because of either exciting cause, because of some external cause, because of a dynamic cause, because of some dynamic entity acting on human being, all those. If you remove them or if you take them aside, what remains over there are the chronic diseases. Again, out of them, Hahnemann considers that those diseases which are because of drugging that he has taken out. Second variety of diseases that those are because of causa occasionalis, to which he labeled false false chronic diseases, that those also he has taken out. And what remained over there are the true chronic diseases, and true chronic diseases are the result of chronic miasm. So he came to the deduction of chronic miasms after long study. It has been said by the Kent over there. He takes 12 years to reach to that specific entity. So it is a big period to reach to the root cause of the chronic diseases, and that was the miasm. So this is an introductory lecture related with the miasm. What is miasm? What are different terminologies? What miasm was known by Hahnemann, and what was wrongly interpreted of interpretation of miasm done by the people, that we're going to learn in tomorrow's session. So that's all regarding all those things. Thank you being there. Tomorrow is World Homeopathic Day. That is our master, Dr. Samuel Hahnemann's birthday. So in tomorrow's session, we'll discuss something other than Robert's philosophy. I'll share, it will be a, I think it will be a good time to have a face-to-face communication. If your whatever maybe the questions are there in your mind, we'll have directly a face-to-face chat. So it will be a session which is related with thoughts in your mind, questions in your mind, and direct answering from me if it is possible for me to answer. So that will be a great session tomorrow. Be there. We'll continue at the same time, 5:45, and even if needed, we'll repeat it immediately follow it with the next session also, so that it will be a good interactive session tomorrow. That will be a tribute to the Dr. Samuel Hahnemann. So definitely we'll meet tomorrow at the same time. Uh, Today evening, not possible to conduct the session. We'll meet directly tomorrow and be there and keep all questions which arises in your mind, so that we'll discuss face to face. Then that will be good for everyone who will participate in the session. So thank you. It will be an interactive session. I will going to share exactly, timing will be the same for 5:45. So thank you being there, and good evening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you.